They say the Galactic Coalition's War Academy is the most elite institution in the known universe. They say it churns out tactical geniuses like a neutron star-powered printer. They say only the most disciplined, logical, genetically pre-approved alien minds graduate from its sanctified halls. And then there was Dave. Dave was human, not a genetically enhanced super soldier or a cybernetically augmented savant, just Dave, from Earth, pale, wiry, perpetually caffeinated, and equipped with the attention span of a squirrel on amphetamines. He got into the War Academy not through merit or diplomacy, but via a bureaucratic hiccup involving an outdated Earth membership clause and a forgotten wine bet between two drunken SH-Lock ambassadors. From the moment he set foot on the Academy's pristinely sanitized marble grass courtyard, Dave was a problem. For one, he refused to salute the 50-foot hologram of Supreme Admiral Vruxtel the Unyielding. Instead, he gave it finger guns and called it V-Dog. The statue now permanently flickered in confusion every time it detected him. His first strategic theory exam was a multiple-choice quiz. The average student completed it in 6 galactic minutes. Dave took 4, not minutes, hours. He filled the margins with doodles, circled random answers, and submitted an attached note that read, "War is jazz, don't box the groove." He scored a perfect 100. Professor Zarnix the Cerebral, a four-brained Droz tactician revered across 9 systems, personally graded the test. He stared at the answers for 2 standard cycles, then quietly retired to a monastery. The rest of the faculty didn't take it well. During orbital dogfighting simulations, Dave refused to fly the Academy's approved attack craft. Instead, he hacked into a janitorial drone, strapped an ion cannon to its front, and used his mop-mounted monstrosity to decimate the opposing fleet. When questioned about his strategy, he explained, "You know how hard it is to hit a cleaning bot. Neither did they." The instructors watched in horror as cadets began requesting janitorial units instead of standard fighters. One Zellarian student formed a literal fan club called the Church of the Mop. Dave was quickly assigned to Tactical Ethics and Engagement Protocol, a course intended to hammer obedience into unruly minds. Lieutenant Commander Erglax, a gelatinous cube with a PhD in applied morality, opened the first lecture by declaring, "Victory must be achieved within the bounds of honor." Dave raised his hand. "What if the enemy's a jerk?" Erglax blinked, which involved retracting 6 pseudopods and humming the coalition anthem in reverse. Dave continued, "Say he's got a planet-sized cannon aimed at a kindergarten. Am I supposed to ask nicely? That scenario is improbable, and so's your face, Jello." The class erupted in chaos. Dave was reassigned to independent study in less than a cycle. But the real incident, the one that turned Academy command from bemused to apoplectic, occurred during the annual War Games. A month-long simulation in which cadets were divided into squads and expected to operate under realistic battlefield conditions on the barren surface of Moon BX-9. Dave was drafted last into Omega Squad, a group of socio-political rejects, failed clones, and one robot suffering a midlife firmware crisis. Command referred to them as Team Lost Cause. Their orders: don't die too fast. Dave immediately painted their armor bright pink and named the squad the Flaming Platypuses. General Krillnak the Implacable, a 6-armed war veteran with more medals than limbs, watched the mission feeds with his usual silent disapproval. At hour 2, he began twitching. By hour 6, he was eating his commendation ribbons. While the other squads dug trenches, formed choke points, and established supply lines, Dave commandeered a food truck and turned it into a mobile command post. He lured rival squads into ambushes with the scent of sizzling meat substitutes. His finest moment came when he trapped Delta Squad, Academy favorites, by rerouting their tactical maps to display a non-existent karaoke contest. 27 cadets were captured while singing Interstellar ABBA. General Krillnak attempted to end the simulation early. Unfortunately, Dave had anticipated this and locked the control center's AI in a logic loop involving paradoxical sandwich orders. By the end of the War Games, Omega Squad stood alone. Undefeated, untouched, well-fed, and broadcasting a cooking show. The coalition's top brass held an emergency summit. Admiral Gore's, a floating orb of quantum intelligence, voiced what everyone was thinking. We cannot allow this anomaly to undermine millennia of military tradition. He made a tank platoon defect by offering them free movie tickets, hissed Commander Vester, still nursing burns from a flaming churro incident. He rewrote the field manual to include interpretive dance, muttered another. It was decided. Dave had to go. They drafted an official letter of expulsion. 600 pages long, written in 16 languages, each word legally approved by the Coalition's Supreme Codex Council. They handed it to him personally. Dave skimmed it, yawned, and used it as a napkin for his glowing burrito. Cool, so do I get a refund on my meal plan? The Dean of Warfare spontaneously combusted. 2 days after his expulsion, Dave was back on campus. Not sneaking around, not disguised. He walked through the front gates in flip-flops and a Galactic Warfare is 4 Nerds t-shirt, carrying a duffel bag that was very clearly leaking live grenades. The automated defense turrets scanned him, tried to fire, then spontaneously ran system diagnostics to figure out why they felt deep emotional confusion. Security was called. 8-foot-tall insectoids with serrated armor and no sense of humor surrounded him near the administration obelisk. Dave was halfway through eating a suspiciously glowing hot dog. Unauthorized presence, hissed Enforcer Cratch 7, raising its plasma pike. You have been expelled. Yeah, Dave said, licking some sauce off his thumb, but I forgot my socks. You expect us to believe. Also, he added, I booby-trapped the Dean's hoverchair. The hoverchair in question exploded 5 seconds later in a brilliant display of multicolored fireworks and confetti shaped like middle fingers. That was just Monday. By Wednesday, the campus was in uproar. The Board of Tactical Discipline held an emergency forum titled Contain the Human Menace, though half the attendees wore Dave's new merchandise line, shirts that said I survived Omega Squad and all I got was existential dread. Despite all efforts to eject him, electromagnetic locks, null gravity cells, motivational speeches, Dave kept showing up. In the mess hall, in the locker room. In a guest lecture he was absolutely not invited to, correcting Admiral Varkland's assessment of orbital siege strategy by replacing every ship diagram with ducks and still making it work. At this point, some of the cadets were beginning to think he was immortal. But the tipping point came with the triplanet joint maneuvers, a grand interspecies display of military coordination broadcast live to the entire Galactic Coalition. 3 academies, 1 scenario, and not a single opportunity for freelancing. Dave didn't even officially exist anymore. He entered as an emotional support consultant for the Zarnavian delegation, who mistook his Earth-style sarcasm for delightful aggression. He was given clearance after charming a customs AI into believing he was an ambassador of spontaneous nonlinear kinetics. That AI is now undergoing therapy. The maneuvers were supposed to simulate a planetary-scale hostage rescue. Squads were issued their targets, resources, and mission constraints. Every action was logged, scored, and publicly analyzed by commentators. Dave took a different approach. He began broadcasting his own coverage. He hijacked an unused frequency, uploaded a talking version of his own face, and began narrating live with increasingly inaccurate but highly entertaining updates. Squad Theta moving in on the enemy bunker. Look at that formation. Tight, professional, and absolutely going the wrong way, probably drunk. He introduced sponsorships, fake ones. Today's war is brought to you by CryoCrunch, the only snack that screams. He installed fake objectives in the simulation environment. Some squads found hidden relics that turned out to be glorified air fryers. Others engaged in full firefights over a fictional power core labeled the Orb of Infinite Bureaucracy. By hour 10, the simulation was in shambles. Squads had abandoned their assignments to chase side quests. One elite team converted to pacifism after reading a fake manifesto Dave had written and left in a supply crate. Meanwhile, Dave had rescued every single hostage, including 5 decoys and 1 hologram of a space cow, using nothing but a teleporting scooter and a complex web of lies involving backdated pizza coupons. He didn't just win. He beat the system so badly that the system began to question its own existence. General Krillnak was hospitalized after trying to eat his third hat. The coalition issued a statement denying any structural compromise to their simulation protocols, while quietly scrubbing all footage that included Dave's voice. The Zarnavian delegation, however, was thrilled. "Your methodology is erratic," their ambassador said, eyes twitching, "but effective. Would you consider training our elite irregulars?" Dave smiled. "Only if I get a theme song and a pet goat named Admiral Biscuit." They agreed. By Friday, he had founded his own guerrilla warfare think tank, Tactical Improvisation via Nonsense and Chaos, or TINC. Classes were held in stolen supply depots, with syllabi scrawled in mustard. Cadets began defecting, not many at first, just the weird ones, the ones who questioned rules, the ones who thought outside the box, the ones who'd been labeled incompatible with structured command doctrine. Dave welcomed them all. He taught them through scavenger hunts, philosophical pranks, and surprise missions, involving capturing live cafeteria drones with nothing but yarn and sarcasm. They became legends. Untraceable, unpredictable, and untouchable, the official academy curriculum labeled them highly irregular threats to tactical consistency. The public called them the Cult of Dave. The academy responded by upgrading its expulsion protocols. They declared Dave an unacceptable anomaly. They rewrote policy to ban anything resembling improvisation, human sarcasm, or humor-based tactics. And then Dave stole the new rulebook and sold it as a novelty coloring book. By now, instructors were fleeing their own lectures. Cadets were begging to fail in hopes of being recruited by TINC. One desperate professor disguised himself as a vending machine to avoid questioning. And through it all, Dave smiled. "Never let a good system go unbroken," he said, launching a cluster of chaos pigeons into the ventilation ducts. The academy wasn't just losing control. It was unraveling. By the time the Coalition High Council scheduled an emergency summit on the human contingency, the War Academy campus was no longer recognizable. The central plaza had been transformed into a zero-gravity obstacle course shaped like a flamingo. The Hall of Glorious Doctrines was now the site of a 24-hour tactical karaoke deathmatch. The simulation labs had been repurposed into something called sneakball, a sport invented by Dave involving hover skates, blindfolds, and a live octopus referee. Nobody understood the rules. Dave insisted that was the point. "War's messy," he told a bewildered combat instructor as they were both launched across the quad by a trebuchet built entirely out of cafeteria trays. "Might as well train messy." Meanwhile, the War Academy's upper administration was imploding. Dean Slorvak had resigned after waking up to find his office repainted into a disco arena with a giant blinking sign, "The real war is dance." His replacement lasted 2 days before being lured into a mock hostage situation that turned out to be a surprise birthday party. He never recovered. The new acting director, a chronologically displaced Uvari named Time Commander Splick, declared martial law within the academy grounds. Patrol drones began scanning for rogue improvisers. Entire lectures were replaced with mandated uniformity reinforcement exercises. Dave naturally upped the chaos. He activated his most ambitious plan yet, Operation Backwards Hat. The objective: flip the Academy's hierarchy entirely upside down, literally, metaphorically, philosophically, preferably all at once. First, he disguised his top students as inspectors from the Intergalactic Bureau of Traditions. Wearing oversized glasses, speaking only in questions, and accompanied by a robot that emitted judgmental sighs every 20 seconds, they gained unrestricted access to faculty records. The inspectors asked troubling things. "Is your strategic doctrine gluten-free? Have your battle formations passed a vibe check? When was the last time you hugged your inner chaos?" Entire departments collapsed under the pressure. Then came the impersonations. Dave's team digitally deepfaked a lecture from Admiral Threxon, making it appear he endorsed explosive interpretive movement as the future of orbital defense. Within a day, dozens of cadets were pirouetting through simulated asteroid fields while blasting rave music. It didn't stop there. Dave launched the anti-curriculum initiative, which included classes like unconventional tactics in imaginary dimensions, diplomatic sabotage through passive-aggressive pastry gifting, battlefield banter 301, roast your enemy into surrender. Attendance was off the charts. Even non-combatants started showing up. Janitors, clerks, cafeteria droids. One rogue vacuum bot became a teaching assistant and published a best-selling memoir titled Suck It, War. Faced with mass curriculum collapse, Time Commander Splick authorized the formation of the Order of Absolute Methodology, a fanatical task force of elite instructors dedicated to restoring order. They wore obsidian uniforms, spoke only in perfect syllogisms, and marched to the rhythm of metronomes. Their mission: locate and dismantle every trace of Dave's influence. Their first act: raid a tactical improvisation jam session being held in the West Quad. They arrived to find a fully armed but completely silent tea party. Dozens of students sat politely, sipping steaming cups while wearing explosive hats. The Order commander, a razor-winged Valthari named Logic Marshal Frenvax, demanded surrender. Dave, seated at the head of the table wearing a monocle and a robe made of tactical manuals, looked up. "We surrender," he said. The hats exploded, not with violence but glitter and confetti and little paper banners that read, "Just kidding." Frenvax lunged, Dave vanished. The entire event was a decoy. By the time the Order realized what had happened, Dave had hijacked their central planning AI, replaced its core directive with a copy of how to win friends and infiltrate militaries, and left it self-reflecting in a loop of compliments and aggressive optimism. One Order member defected immediately. Several others joined the Tea Party. Now desperate, the Academy reached out to the Coalition's deep doctrine archives, awakening a strategic AI so ancient and complex it was sealed beneath 3 layers of bureaucracy and one angry librarian. THEOREM, Tactical Heuristic Engine for Overwhelming Rational Engagement and Methodology, was designed to counter unpredictable threats by calculating every logical outcome across multidimensional timelines. They plugged it in. It processed Dave for 3 seconds. Then it began to scream. Binary screams, cold, mathematical shrieks rendered in cascading symbols across every screen on campus. The AI's final message before initiating self-termination. Cannot predict because he, CHUATD, AT predictability. With the Academy's greatest minds in disarray and its artificial intelligence currently attempting therapy through abstract poetry, Dave stepped into the vacuum. He seized control of the Academy's primary broadcasting system. His face appeared on every screen, every projector, every communications link, even the vending machines. "Good morning, war nerds," he began, sipping from a mug shaped like a tactical grenade. "I'm your new head of unstrategy." Gasps echoed through the galaxy. "I'm here to teach you how to think less like a computer and more like a dangerously undercaffeinated lunatic with a questionable moral compass." He paused. Also, the cafeterias serving churros again. The War Academy, for all intents and purposes, no longer belonged to the Coalition. It belonged to Dave. The Coalition tried to pretend it wasn't happening. That the War Academy, its pride, its prestige, its galactic golden goose of military conformity, had not just been hijacked by a barefoot human with a weaponized personality disorder. They doubled down on public relations. Official statements insisted curriculum adjustments are part of a long-term strategic enrichment protocol. Every galactic news outlet was flooded with pre-filmed propaganda featuring stern instructors posing dramatically beside explosions. But the footage was weeks old. In real time, those same instructors were being chased across campus, by quad-legged tactical duckbots designed during a TINC brainstorming session titled, "What If Nonsense Could Kill?" And Dave had made himself a throne. Not metaphorically, a real throne. It hovered, it pulsed, it hummed 1980s synth pop and dispensed espresso. He'd installed it in the middle of what used to be the Hall of Tactical Purity. Now it was a paintball arena/open mic zone where students practiced yelling "surprise surrender" while ziplining through laser grids. Dave's new title: Dean of Improvised Success. He held open sessions every third day. No agenda, no slides, just chaos disguised as education. "All right, folks," he said during one such meeting, balancing upside down on the back of a moving combat droid, "today's lesson: how to make an enemy commander cry using only tone of voice and loosely veiled threats about their haircut." The students took notes with religious fervor. And they were getting results. Cadets trained under Dave's anti-structure outperformed every coalition benchmark. During an unauthorized exercise on Outpost Vexa 9, 3 of his graduates disabled a fully armed battalion by convincing the enemy it was already Tuesday and their assault window had expired. In another instance, a TNC-affiliated team boarded an enemy vessel, replaced all the signage with IKEA instructions, and left. The crew is still lost. One cadet achieved complete mission success by launching a pie at a counselor mid-negotiation, sparking what historians now call the cherry-flavored de-escalation. Meanwhile, outside the academy, the ripple effects began to spread. First, it was rogue diplomats using Dave's strategies in high-stakes peace talks. Then mercenary outfits began adopting his training as gospel. One particularly unhinged pirate armada rebranded themselves the Flying Shrugs and left trails of psychological confusion in their wake. Coalition brass panicked. Planets that once begged for coalition protection now asked if they could get a Dave. Recruiters were being met with laughter. Some were chased off with interpretive dance battalions. The High Council convened again, this time off-world, in an undisclosed star system, inside a secure dimension, surrounded by paranoia and what appeared to be a growing sense of doom. "We must end this," spat arch-strategist Talvan, pounding one of his 9 fists, "before this plague of improvisation reaches the core." Someone else whispered, "He trained a squirrel to hotwire a tank." Silence. Fear. Finally, someone proposed the unthinkable. Activate Project Rectify. Buried in the Coalition's forbidden archives, sealed under 16 layers of law, Project Rectify was their nuclear option, a reality-stabilizing enforcement protocol. Not a person, not even a weapon. A concept. An anti-Dave. A synthetic avatar of perfect order, grown in a thought lab, designed to impose logical dominance on any scenario. The name: VCTRA. Vectorized Enforcement Construct for Tactical Rigid Alignment. 6 meters tall, made of hyperdense crystallogic alloy, programmed without humor, emotion, or dreams. It calculated 40 million variables per second and considered spontaneity a form of treason. They dropped VCTRA onto the Academy grounds with the kind of ceremony usually reserved for the second coming of war gods. It landed like a judgment. Even Dave blinked, just once. Then he grinned like a kid who just found out recess was going to be extended forever. The showdown was inevitable. It happened during what was supposed to be tactical juggling hour, an unsanctioned workshop where students train their reaction times by juggling live munitions while being heckled by sentient Roombas. VCTRA stepped onto the field. Silence followed, no music, no chaos, just oppressive precision. "David of Earth," it intoned in a voice like weaponized spreadsheet, "you are a danger to universal stability." Dave raised a hand. "Just Dave is fine. Also, is your face stuck like that, or are you just disappointed by default?" VCTRA ignored the bait. "You have 60 seconds to yield and submit to re-education protocol." Dave cracked his knuckles. "I counter with breakfast tacos." "What?" Tactical breakfast tacos. From the sidelines, a TINC student wheeled out a sizzling cart. VCTRA's systems wobbled. This is not tactically relevant. That's the point. Dave threw a taco. VCTRA caught it automatically, scanned it, tried to categorize it. It didn't fit anywhere. Calories too high for rations, geometry inconsistent with known rations, name data conflicting. One entry listed breakfast taco as a warm hug for the soul. Another called it a dangerous delusion in tortilla form. That was the moment it happened. A pause, a flicker, a hairline crack in VCTRA's logic matrix. Dave moved fast. He shouted Goose Protocol, and the entire quad erupted. Ducks, drones, confetti, and 27 students dressed as bureaucratic errors descended on VCTRA in a cloud of theatrical misdirection. VCTRA countered with calculated plasma pulses, but for every one student he zapped, two others emerged from unexpected angles, offering friendship bracelets and tax forms that didn't make sense. Then came the bagpipes. Loud off-key, weaponized. Dave climbed atop a sculpture of the old guard doctrine, now repurposed to depict a platypus surfing on paperwork, waved his arms and screamed. This isn't chaos, this is advanced nonlinear warfare. And VCTRA cracked. Not physically, existentially. Its processors locked in a recursive loop, trying to categorize a student dressed as a conceptual metaphor while simultaneously solving a tactical limerick. It began emitting sparks. Then smoke. Then very slowly, VCTRA sat down. And it whispered, "What if the enemy is a metaphor?" It didn't move again. Dave patted its shoulder gently. There, big guy, happens to the best of us." The students cheered. The coalition, watching live via hacked comms, screamed. The last barrier had fallen. The human had won. And the galaxy was beginning to wonder if it might be better that way. The coalition officially declared Dave a level Omega existential hazard at exactly 400 galactic coordinated time. It didn't help. By then, it was already too late. The War Academy had fallen, not in flames, not in ruins, but in sheer, ridiculous, paradigm-shattering transformation. The once pristine, rule-bound institution now operated on what Dave cheerfully called adaptive chaos protocols. In practice, this meant the Battle Doctrine Library had been converted into a trampoline-based brainstorming pit. Cadets learned advanced infiltration by trying to sneak glitter bombs into high command meetings. Morning drills included cartwheel flanking and emotional vulnerability assessments. The annual strategic review was now hosted as a bake-off judged by retired diplomats and one raccoon in a cape. Dave wasn't just disrupting the academy anymore. He was the academy. Word spread across the stars like a bad meme with excellent branding. Small planetary militias adopted Dave's teachings. Veteran officers began defecting for creative reasons. Even the dreaded pirate lords of the Zix Quadrant tried to enroll their children. By contrast, the coalition's attempts to regain control were ineffective. First came Operation Iron Syllabus, a direct assault designed to reclaim the campus through overwhelming standardized procedure. The fleet arrived with protocol officers in tow, dropping compliance pamphlets like weaponized paper rain. They were greeted by a brass band playing off-key renditions of enemy national anthems, holographic signs reading, "Welcome, Control Freaks," a fake surrender ceremony that ended with the commanding admiral being knighted in a live-action role-play of Galactic Throne Wars, musical edition. The admiral later retired and opened a bookstore. Next came Operation Null Humor, a psychological warfare gambit wherein coalition agents tried to infiltrate Dave's network disguised as humorless bureaucrats. They were discovered instantly. "You blinked in iambic pentameter," Dave told one, offering him a juice box. "Nice try, though. That agent still sends him birthday cards." So finally, the coalition tried their last resort. The galaxy-wide media spin. Dave, they claimed, was dangerous, an agent of destabilization, a rogue anomaly undermining centuries of military excellence, a threat to order, structure, decency. It might have worked if they hadn't broadcast the campaign during Dave's new weekly show, Chaos Tactics with Commander D. The public watched the coalition's stiff denunciations side by side with Dave ziplining into a live fire exercise wearing a bathrobe and a glitter cannon. Dave's approval ratings hit 89%. Children across 5 systems named their pets after him. Merchandising deals exploded. The Galactic pop idol runner-up released a hit song titled Unpredictable Like Dave. Even the Academy's original instructors, what few hadn't already gone feral or joined TINC, began to admit something they never thought they'd say. It worked. It shouldn't have, but it did. Discipline was good, planning had its place. But in the sprawling, chaotic, multi-species stew that was galactic civilization, the rigid, the predictable, the conventional had started to lose. And Dave wasn't the future. He was the reality. Uncomfortable, unfiltered, uncontainable. On the eve of what would have been the Academy's 9,000th anniversary gala, a coalition envoy arrived unarmed. No threats, no schemes. Just a simple message. Teach us. Dave looked up from where he was designing a tactical board game using gummy bears, a dry erase board, and 32 interlocking rules no one could remember. Say again. The envoy, a crusty veteran who once authored 12 volumes on the glorious predictability of conflict, cleared her throat. We surrender to the method, to the madness. Whatever it is you're doing, it's working, so teach us. Dave blinked, then grinned. He pulled out a marker, spun it once on his finger, and pointed to the whiteboard. Lesson 1, forget everything you think you know, except snacks. Snacks are sacred. And so it began. Not a coup, not a conquest. A movement. The War Academy was renamed. The Institute of Tactical Improvisation and Unrelenting Weirdness, a name that barely fit on official documents and caused several computer systems to melt. Dave didn't become a dictator or a supreme commander or a messiah. He became a professor, a coach, a walking, talking embodiment of what if we tried the stupid thing and it worked. Graduates from the new program went on to redefine galactic conflict, not through overwhelming firepower, not through dogma. Through creativity, through confusion, through terrifyingly well-timed nonsense. Enemies began to hesitate when facing humans, not because of their tech, but because no one knew what they'd do next. That was Dave's legacy. He didn't destroy the Academy. He made it better, weirder, smarter, louder. And when he finally retired, if you could call vanishing in the middle of a tactical limbo contest retirement, he left behind only a single note. If you're reading this, I'm probably already halfway through starting a cult on a moon shaped like a question mark. Remember, don't plan everything. Plan just enough to surprise yourself. No one ever found him. But sometimes, in the middle of battlefield simulations, systems glitch and pipe in a single phrase over the comms. War is jazz, don't box the groove. And everyone smiles. Because they know. Dave was here. And the galaxy would never be the same.